Qatar-Gulf crisis, all the latest updates. An air, sea and land blockade imposed on Qatar by Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain and Egypt is now in its fourth month. 11:35 p.m., Qatari and Turkish leaders hold phone conversation. The Emir of Qatar has spoken over the phone with Turkey's president to discuss a set of current issues on the regional and international fronts, according to Qatari state media. Qatar news agency said that Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and Recep Tayyip Erdogan also reviewed bilateral relations between the two fraternal countries. The phone call came about 2 weeks after a meeting between the two leaders in the presidential palace in Turkey's capital, Ankara. Erdogan has been a major supporter of Doha since June 5, when Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and Egypt cut ties and blockaded Qatar. The Turkish president has strongly spoken out against the sanctions applied by the four countries, while Turkey has also sent cargo ships and hundreds of planes loaded with food to break the blockade. 11 a.m., seminar speakers slam un-Islamic blockade. Expressing disappointment over illegal, unethical and un-Islamic actions of siege countries, speakers at an international seminar in Doha emphasized the need for dialogue to resolve political disputes, Qatari newspaper The Peninsula reported. Professor Aisha Al-Mani, director of the Mohammed bin Hamad Al Thani Center for Islamic Contributions to Civilizations, said, "The world has witnessed this unfair generalization against the state of Qatar with allegations that it supports terrorism without providing evidence. This crisis has been marked by the moral downfall of everything, politicians, religious scholars, media professionals and even artists," she said. Jaber al-Harimi, former editor-in-chief of Qatar's Al-Sharq newspaper, lauded the role of Qatari media in covering the crisis. The siege countries, by forgetting all ethics, are spreading lies, disinformation against Qatar while the Qatari media has remained committed to morality without resorting to lies and slander, al-Harimi said. 9 a.m., report, Qatar's ostracization could backfire on Dubai. Dubai's economic ties to Qatar could hurt its own economy amid a months-long blockade, Euromoney reports. Qataris own large amounts of property in Dubai, buying more than $500 million of real estate there last year alone, and Qatari gas is one of Dubai's main sources of energy. The biggest impact, however, could be to the reputation of Dubai as a business-friendly jurisdiction, it said. Showing sympathy for Qatar in the United Arab Emirates is now a crime punishable by a fine of $136,000 and up to 15 years in prison. September 29, 2017. 8 p.m. Qatar holds cybersecurity meeting in New York. The permanent mission of Qatar to the United Nations has held a high-level meeting on the sidelines of the 72nd session of the UN General Assembly in New York. The meeting, which was titled, "From Cyber Attack to Illegal Measures, the Blockade Against the State of Qatar," coincided with a major diplomatic crisis in the Gulf, highlighting the impact of the dispute and its multifaceted repercussions on the countries involved. The first session examined the events since the May 25 cyber attack on Qatar news agency, QNA, and the publication of false statements attributed to Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. In a speech during the session, Attorney General Ali bin Faiz Al-Mari described hacking as one of the most dangerous crimes threatening international peace and security, QNA reported. Mari said the issue is of great concern to the international community, stressing that countries should take measures not only to ban and punish those involved in piracy for political or personal gain, but also treat them as a major threat to international peace and security. "This was a turning point in the events we, in Qatar, did not expect it, but we were able to deal with it and overcome the obstacles created by these sudden actions to ensure the continuity of normal daily life," he said. 2 a.m., U.S. Defense Chief Mattis makes surprise Qatar visit. James Mattis, U.S. Defense Secretary, has made an unannounced visit to Qatar. He held talks with Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and Defense Minister Khalid bin Mohammed Al Adiyah at Al Udeid Air Base, home to around 10,000 U.S. troops, on Thursday. 1 a.m., Qatar's stock market most positive in region, polls. Sentiment towards Qatar's stock market, which has fallen after 4 neighboring Arab states cut diplomatic and transport ties with Doha on June 5, has improved considerably, latest Reuters polls show. 31% of Middle East funds now expect to raise allocations to Qatari equities and 8% to decrease them, making Qatar the most positive market in the region. The Qatari market experienced a remarkable 11 consecutive days in the red during September. With valuations reaching distressed levels, this was followed by 6 days of gains as local and regional buyers rushed to take advantage, said Akbar Khan, head of asset management at Al Ryan Investment in Doha. September 28, 2017. 10:35 p.m., Qatari and Omani firm signed deal over maritime transportation of goods. Qatari company Transoceans has signed an agreement with Omani maritime transport firm Nazira to facilitate the movement of ferries transporting goods, equipment, cars and tourists between the two countries. The deal was struck on the sidelines of the Oman Products Exhibition, Qatar news agency reported. Qatar and Oman are 2 of the 6 countries that comprise the Gulf Cooperation Council. Fellow GCC members Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, along with Egypt, cut ties with Qatar on June 5 and imposed a land, air and sea blockade on it. Kuwait, also a GCC member, is leading mediation efforts to resolve the crisis. 3:15 p.m. QP CEO says Qatar has not cut off gas to UAE. Qatar Petroleum President Saad Sharida Al-Kaabi said that Qatar will honor its commitment to supply oil and gas to the United Arab Emirates. The state of Qatar has dealt with the gas pipeline to the UAE in a civilized and humanitarian manner, he said. Al-Kaabi also said that Qatar will maintain its position as the world's largest producer of liquefied natural gas, LNG, and that there is an expansion of our investments inside and outside Qatar. 3 p.m. Al Jazeera launches new content on Instagram. The new Instagram content is aimed at providing dedicated, creative, and captivating information to Arab youth. Yasser Bishr, Al Jazeera's executive director of digital said, "This comes as part of Al Jazeera's digital transformation strategy to reach users on all available platforms." This follows after Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Bahrain banned the Al Jazeera Discover service on Snapchat. 9 a.m., Qatar, China signed security agreement. Qatar and the People's Republic of China have signed an agreement to enhance security cooperation and coordination between the two countries. The agreement focuses on the fight against terrorism, and combating extremism in all its forms. 8:30 a.m., Qatar imports rebound in August. According to the Planning and Statistics Ministry, imports jumped 39.1% to $2.38 billion. Imports were 7.8% below their year-earlier levels, but that still marked a major recovery from levels of June and July. Imports were down after Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Egypt cut diplomatic and transport ties with Doha on June 5. Qatari companies and foreign shippers have sought to establish a new shipping routes to Qatar via other countries including Oman, compensating for the loss of Dubai as it RAN's shipment center. September 27, 2017. 11 p.m., Qatari bank looking to sell stake at UAE Bank. Qatar's third-largest lender, Commercial Bank, is in talks to sell its 40% stake in Abu Dhabi-listed United Arab Bank to the UAE's Tabarak Investment, sources told Reuters news agency. 9 p.m., Qatari human rights chief meets U.S. officials. Qatar's National Human Rights Committee, NHRC, Chairman Ali bin Smaik al-Mari underlined the urgent need to put an end to the blockade during his meeting with U.S. officials. During Mary's meeting with the 2 U.S. representatives, Republican Congressman Trent Franks and Gus Polerakis, he urged them to condemn the blockade against Qatar and to take the appropriate measures to help lift it. September 26, 2017. 4 p.m., Gulf diplomatic hurdles trip up Qatar's racing camels. Among the victims of the GCC crisis are 200 Qatari-owned racing camels. The camels had to be shipped back from UAE via Oman after they were banned from competing. Saudi Arabia also expelled hundreds Qatari-owned camels from their country. Many did not make it back onto Qatari soil. September 25, 2017. 2 p.m. Qatari FM says GCC pushing Qatar towards closer Iran relationship. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani said the blockade is pushing Qatar into closer economic ties with Iran, before questioning the wisdom of the Gulf Cooperation Council's strategy. They said Qatar was now closer to Iran. By their measures they are pushing Qatar to Iran. They are giving Iran, or any regional force, Qatar like a gift, he told the French Institute of International Relations on Monday. The FM added that Qatar still has political differences with Iran, including over Syria. September 25, 2017. 9:30 a.m., Qatari FM discusses Gulf crisis in Paris. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani will speak at the French Institute of International Relations on the Gulf crisis, The View from Doha, at 12:30 p.m., Doha time. French President Emmanuel Macron has urged the lifting of a Saudi-led embargo on Qatar in effect since June. Macron called for the embargo measures affecting the people of Qatar, in particular families and students, to be lifted as quickly as possible, on September 15. September 24, 2017. 8 p.m., thousands welcome Qatari Emir on return home. Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani returned to the Qatari capital on Sunday after concluding his first foreign trip since the blockade against his country was announced on June 5. Thousands of people lined up the main boulevard in Doha and waved the national color, as they greeted the country's leader. On Tuesday, Sheikh Tamim spoke at the UN General Assembly in New York and accused countries that imposed the unjust blockade of seeking to destabilize the gas and oil-rich Gulf state. 6 a.m., Qataris plan solidarity event for Emir. Residents will welcome the Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani back to Qatar on Sunday evening with an event planned to express solidarity on the Doha's Corniche. Sheikh Tamim traveled a few weeks ago to meet with world leaders in Turkey, Germany, France and the United States. It was his first trip since the Gulf dispute began in June. Officials and residents announced on Twitter that they will host a warm welcome for him at the airport, followed by an event at the Corniche. September 23, 2017. 7 p.m., Saudi FM, Qatar jeopardizing policy of combating terrorism. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir has reiterated the position of the four blockading Arab nations, demanding Qatar to follow the principles of international law in combating terrorism. Speaking at the United Nations 72nd General Assembly in New York on Saturday, Jubeir said, "The crisis in Qatar is jeopardizing our policy of combating terrorism and extremism and the cutting off funding of such terrorism." The Saudi diplomat added, Saudi Arabia will continue to counter extremism and terrorism. 6 a.m., UAE says Iran main obstacle to Arab peace. The foreign minister of the UAE has said Iran's hostile and expansionist policy is the major obstacle to solving all crises in the Arab world. At the UN General Assembly annual ministerial meeting, Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan accused Iran of interfering in internal affairs of other countries and supporting terrorist groups. He said Iran must realize that the best basis for a harmonious relationship with the states in the Arab Gulf is to respect the sovereignty of countries in the region. 1 a.m., Qatar's NHRC calls for international mission to examine human rights violations. The head of Qatar's National Human Rights Committee, NHRC, has issued a new call for international observers to urgently visit Qatar and its neighbors blockading it to assess the humanitarian impact caused by the moves of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, Qatar's news agency, QNA, reported. Ali bin Sumaik al-Mari's call came during a meeting with Craig Makiber, head of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in New York and Deputy Secretary General for Human Rights of the UN. Mary urged the International Technical Mission to hold direct meetings with nationals and residents of Qatar, as well as citizens of the three blockading countries, to listen to their complaints and document the psychological, material and moral damage they suffered, Q&A said. September 22, 2017. 5 a.m., Somalia rebukes its states for breaking with Qatar. Somalia's government has rebuked its three semi-autonomous regions for cutting ties with Qatar, saying it was determined to stay neutral in the Gulf nation's dispute with other Arab states. The cabinet reaffirms the federal government's decision in June, that Somalia is neutral about the conflicts of Gulf countries, read a statement issued by the Office of Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khair. The Arab states are trying to give more energy and emphasize more their relations with these regional governments, trying to pressure them to go against the federal government, said Nairobi-based Somalia expert Ahmed Robel. September 21, 2017. 23:15, Qatari FM discusses Gulf crisis with Italian, Ukrainian, Australian counterparts and EU Foreign Affairs chief in New York. Qatar's foreign minister met with several dignitaries on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York to discuss, among others, the blockade imposed on Qatar by a group of Arab countries. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani held talks with Federica Mogherini, the European Union Foreign Affairs chief, as well as his Italian, Ukrainian and Australian counterparts, Angelino Alfano, Pavlo Klimkin and Julie Bishop respectively. During the meetings, the Qatari foreign minister discussed the humanitarian impact of the blockade and stressed the importance of dialogue to solve the crisis. 9 a.m., Qatar and Saudi Arabia to compete at show jumping competition. At Ashgabat 2017 in Turkmenistan, riders from Qatar and Saudi Arabia will compete while their countries are locked in a bitter political dispute. The Gulf diplomatic crisis spilled over onto sports when it led to the cancellation of this year's Gulf Cup of Nations in football. However, there is hope that the games in this horse-loving nation can promote cooperation and understanding. September 20, 2017. 10:40, Qatari Emir discusses Gulf crisis with Russian FM at the UN. Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani met on Wednesday with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York City. The two discussed the Gulf dispute among other topics. A similar meeting took place at the UN between Sheikh Tamim and UN's human rights chief, Zeid al-Hussein. 10:35, Qatar is to sell 1.5 million tons of LNG a year to Turkey's Bahrain. State-run Qatar-Gulf, the world's largest producer of liquefied natural gas, LNG, said on Wednesday it had signed a medium-term sales and purchase agreement with Turkey's Bahrain to deliver 1.5 million tons of LNG each year for 3 years. Qatar-Gulf said it would supply the LNG from Qatar-Gulf to either the Aygaz LNG terminal, the Marmara LNG terminal or the Eki LNG terminal in Turkey. We are very pleased to announce this new agreement with Bahrain which will further strengthen our relationship with our friends in Turkey, said Saad Sharida Al-Kabi, President and CEO of Qatar Petroleum and Chairman of Board of Directors of Qatar-Gulf. September 19, 2017. 11:41, Trump expects Gulf dispute to be quickly resolved. U.S. President Donald Trump has said on Tuesday he thought the dispute between Qatar and some of its Arab neighbors would be resolved quickly. We are right now in a situation where we are trying to solve a problem in the Middle East. And I think we'll get it solved. I have a very strong feeling that it will be solved pretty quickly, Trump said in New York as he met Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. 11:10 p.m., Qatari Emir condemns unjust blockade at UNGA speech. Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani has said that a group of Arab countries imposing an unjust blockade on Qatar are seeking to destabilize a sovereign state. I stand before you while my country and my people are subjected to an ongoing and unjust blockade imposed since June 5 by neighboring countries, Sheikh Tamim said, addressing the UN General Assembly in New York on Tuesday. He asked if this was not a definition of terrorism, saying that the moves by the blockading countries were an assault against the sovereign state and a violation against human rights. September 18, 2017. 9:30 a.m., Snapchat blocks Al Jazeera in Saudi Arabia. Snapchat has blocked access to Al Jazeera news articles and videos in Saudi Arabia following a request from the government, a spokesperson for Snap Incorporated has said. Saudi Arabia's government told the social media company that the Al Jazeera Discover publisher channel violated local laws. "We make an effort to comply with local laws in the countries where we operate," a Snapchat spokesperson said in a statement. Morad Rayyan, head of Incubation and Innovation Research at Al Jazeera, said the move was unprecedented. Snapchat is a U.S.-based company, publicly traded, and it stands for freedom of expression. "We are working on contingency plans to ensure our content is available on other platforms," Rayyan said. 6 a.m., Qatar proposes a compensation committee. Qatar's National Human Rights Committee, NHRC, proposed the establishment of a compensation committee, within the framework of the UN General Assembly, for victims of the unilateral actions taken against Qatar. The proposal was made during the NHRC's comments in a report presented to the Human Rights Council by Idris Jazari, Special Rapporteur on the negative impact of the unilateral coercive measures. The NHRC said that the current situation met all of the conditions for the creation of specialized compensation committees, as outlined in the report, adding that this committee must be established under strict guidelines and must have wide authority to make decisions. September 17, 2017. 6:30 p.m. UK to supply Qatar with 24 Typhoon fighter jets. Qatar's Defense Minister Khalid bin Mohammed Al Attiyah and the United Kingdom's Defense Secretary Michael Fallon signed a letter of intent on Sunday in Doha to purchase 24 Typhoon aircraft. This will be the first major defense contract with Qatar, one of the UK's strategic partners. "This is an important moment in our defense relationship and the basis for even closer defense cooperation between our two countries," said Fallon. "We also hope that this will help enhance security within the region across all Gulf allies." 5:45 p.m., Qatar's FM calls on world leaders to do more against terrorism. Qatar's Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani has said the world leaders are not doing enough to combat terrorism. Speaking at the U.S. Islamic World Forum in New York City, he said, "Terrorism is a scary phenomenon. Violence and hatred have helped a lot in the eruption and creation of the terrorist organizations. The international community and the world in general has not done enough against terrorism." 12 p.m., Qatari stocks continues to slide. Qatar's stock market headed for its 10th straight losing session on Sunday while Saudi Arabia's index bucked an otherwise weak region because of gains in the petrochemical sector. On Friday, Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani said Qatar was ready to sit at the negotiating table to try to end a dispute with its Gulf Arab neighbors. But in the absence of a positive response from the Saudi-led coalition boycotting Qatar, investors did not take the remarks as a sign that the dispute was moving closer to resolution. Qatar's index slipped 0.5% with Doha Bank dropping 2.6%. In Saudi Arabia, all but one of the 14 listed petrochemical shares rose after Brent crude closed near a 5-month peak on Friday. 11:20 a.m., Qatar's foreign minister to keynote U.S. Islamic World Forum. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani will deliver a keynote address at the U.S. Islamic World Forum in New York on Sunday. The annual forum, now in its 13th year, is organized by the Brookings Institution in conjunction with the State of Qatar. This year's theme is Crisis and Cooperation, and discussion topics include ending conflicts in the Middle East and the future of pluralism in the Arab world.